Corey, I have a confession, sister. When
What is your confession?
When all of this started and everybody was like, we're just toning down self-care, being with ourselves, all I kept thinking was, I just want to be on the farm with Kelis gardening and absorbing all of those good vibes. That's how I wanted to feel. Like her Instagram makes me feel. Did you feel that?
No, I feel that. Yeah, it's kind of like a zen moment. Like, you know what? Let me just go away. I just need to go away and be with the earth.
Seriously.
Be with the earth. Yes.
I almost have to fly to LA, but good thing we didn't have to, because since the new Netflix show Cook with Cannabis has launched on 420, Kelis is here on the show. Welcome, Kelis. Hey, girl.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Did you hear my farm dream confession?
I did. I heard it. You're more than welcome. We have a lot of space. I made it so it's a farm, but we've eliminated the roughing it elements. So come on down.
So there's a lot of glamping. There's a lot of
glamping farming.
Well, it's funny because, life is crazy and things happen. And like, we've been looking for farmland for so long. And when we finally, I was okay, I'm going to sell my house, and I had my house in LA, and we were very comfortable. And then we first got out here, and I had a moment of sheer panic, like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, did I just blame myself? Like, is this crazy? Like, I definitely had a moment of like, abort mission, let's go back.
You could probably hear all the birds, everything.
Beautiful. I mean, it was a lot of work though, like to get it to a place where I didn't feel like I was like, not still feeling like me. Like, it is definitely connection with the earth, and I love that aspect of it. But I needed all of my, like, all my stuff and like all of my, the things that make you feel whole. Whether we want to admit it or not, like.
Yeah.
Right, because you're like a true born and bred New Yorker.
Yes, I am. I am a Harlemite all the way. So.
You needed your creature comforts, they say.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. And so that was like super important. And my husband kept saying, well, you're on a farm. I'm like, sir, that is not the definition. So we found some leveled playing field. And so now it's definitely like, it's very comfortable. So please come on down.
I have a nature nerd girl question. Now that, everything has been quieted down because we've all been forced to stop. Have you seen anything like different with the animals, or how the farm kind of speaks to you now that the earth is kind of quieted down?
Oh.
It's interesting that you say that. You know what? There's a few things. I think being here is so you feel very disconnected in a way anyway. So then you are forced to reconnect with other things. So that's just sort of the nature of being here. And I think also because like, I like hardwired our house and everything, so we don't have any Wi-Fi in any of our structures here. So I thought that was really important. So we are very kind of like, when you're here, you're outside. And you end up doing things that you would, like, if you asked me 10 years ago, I'd have been like, girl, bye. Like, there's no way I'm doing that. But now I'm like, well, what's wrong? This is amazing. I love it. So I think, like, I don't know that it's different I think it's just the nature of being here. It's like you're outside so much more. And it's funny, like, I was calling my mom the other day, and she was just like, girl, you guys are battling the elements. I was like, you have no idea. Every day it's something else. Like this morning I was on the call and I'm like, hold on a second, get the chickens. Like, and keep escaping, which is a whole other thing. But like things like that you're just, when was I ever yelling, get the chickens? Like, I think it's quiet out here. So like, you notice like what animals have attitude, what animals are easy, what animals can the kids go and handle on their own. Yeah. Versus like where, they need an adult. Like there's a lot of things that kind of, that I'm just figuring out, because like we only bought the farm, it's almost a year, but we moved in September of last year. So it's, and I was on tour, so I was gone and there was just so much work to be done. So it's a process. Every day we're like, oh my gosh, like, like that cow was stank. Like I did not realize that. They told me she would not be, they lied. So like, there's like all kinds of things that like, didn't know that.
Corey and I have been saying we're all experiencing that. Like I'm like talking to the birds, like Snow White. Like we're all getting a taste of that life.
No, it's true. And it's amazing though, because it really is like you realize so much. Like I never consider myself like a nature person. I was from Harlem, right? And so like, and I love New York, and I'm such a New Yorker. And for me, like a day out was like shopping. I'm like, we're gonna take a day outside. I'm gonna go shop. Like, that was my, like, I'm an outdoor event, right? Like, connect with nature, like with yourself. That's what I felt. So this is a whole different thing. It's definitely like, my phone doesn't work half the time. You know, I'm like, let me go. And I find myself going like sit with the vegetables. And it was funny because, you know, I've got my children and they grew up in the city too. And now like my oldest the other day, cause like it's, you know, springtime and now so everything's really starting to harvest. He went outside and he was like, so wait, I can just like walk in here and like eat stuff? I used to have to fight with them to eat anything that was green. You know what I mean? Like,
Wow.
I can just pick, he's like, this is incredible. I can just pick up stuff and just eat it. And I'm like, yeah, sure. You know, so
Wow.
we're connecting in a different way. And so that's really cool.
Like right off the tree. I'm like,
we have so many fruit trees. You know, we just did our first olive harvest. So we did, we've been pressing our own olive oil, which is insane. So that was really exciting. And then, you know, just with all of our like produce and stuff, like we have so much. And because everything grows here, yes, baby. Oh. Well, yeah, but there's a trash can. Use the trash can over there, okay? Tell your brother. They're outside all day. And it's funny because like I find myself, my friend called me the other day and she's like, where's Shepherd? And that's my little one. And I was like, I don't know. She's like, what do you mean you don't know? I was like, well, and it's funny. I said it, I had to laugh because I'm like, I could have never said that in LA. I'm like, I know exactly what Here, it's like, he walks outside. We're like, who just opened the door? It's the 4-year-old. He just went outside and he's like, oh, you know, I got stuff to do. So they're it's like, they're on the farm and they're doing farm stuff and they're outside so much more. And they're not asking for television or iPads all the time. So that's definitely changed, like just our lifestyle, just inherently just being out here.
So how have you been able to like fit in working on a Cooked with Cannabis show? Like, how were you able to like between like touring, farming, mothering?
Well, you know, I mean, you know how we do, right? It's like, it's a juggle. We're constantly like, hey, got it over here. Like, you know, so, I mean, it was really, the beauty of the show was that it was a really quick kind of like, you know, a lot of times TV can be very drawn out and this wasn't. I went in, I talked to them. I went in initially just trying to see like if this is something I was interested in, and I wanted to see what the approach was. And you know, it was a big deal, and so I really wanted to kind of like take it and think about it and what it meant, and was it going to mean all of that? Like, were they going to allow it to mean all of that? You know, and so like it was a lot of things for me that I sort of, you know, was thinking about. But really shortly after, like I first went and met with the producers and everything, and kind of got a feel of what they wanted to do. Pretty much it wasn't long after that they were like, okay, if you're down, we're down, like let's do it. And so by that point I talked about it, prayed about it, talked to my mama, like you know, like kind of like had all the conversations I needed to have, and I felt really good about it. And so we went in, and it was a short time even in the filming, so I was able to kind of be like, okay, this is the amount of time that we have blocked off for this. It wasn't like a long drawn out thing. It was short and sweet, and it was a really easy process, I have to say. So I was able to juggle amongst all the other stuff.
I love that the show Cooked with Cannabis is dealing with something that used to be so taboo and now it's so mainstream. And this is huge. This is a cooking show.
Yeah.
I love it.
No, it's crazy. And we just hit like Netflix top 10, I think, in like 2 days, which is incredible. But you know, like I said, for me, it has been taboo. It was also branded and labeled. It became an ethnic issue. It became something I was really cognizant because I wanted to make sure that, yes, it's lighthearted and it's fun and it's all these things, but just because we're able to make money from it and prosper and do all these wonderful things from it now, there's still a lot of suffering behind it. There's still a lot of things that need to be touched on, and I thought that was really important. And so, yeah, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. One of our chefs that we had, you know, competing on the show, like he's from Chicago, and I don't even, you know, we did it last year. I don't think it's even, I'm not sure if it's legal now, but it wasn't at the time. Right. So he's there representing, knowing that he's got friends and family that are incarcerated behind it. And yet he's in fabulous, you know, Los Angeles in this wonderful set doing this fabulous show. And so there was a lot of like emotion and stuff that people were, you know, was dealing with in the midst of it. So it's powerful though. That's why I was excited, because I felt like if it's going to be done, it needs to be done right. And I feel good that we did it some justice, at least in its introduction.
Well, Kelis, you're not new to food shows. I mean, you had your own on the cooking channel called Kelis, Saucy and Sweet. You've had food trucks. You know, we all know that you're a professionally trained chef. So what else about the show made you jump on and say, I want to get involved in this?
Well, you know, I am not down for any kind of buffoonery. So for me, I was really like, first of all, like as far as from the cannabis perspective, like who do we have involved who knows what the hell's going on, which like really what they're doing. And they had some fantastic experts that have been in the field for a very long time. And then on the chef side, when I started to see like who they were considering, these are also people who were chefs for sure. And then also in conjunction with that, were able to incorporate cannabis as an actual ingredient, as opposed to just like, let's make some, make some weed butter, like, try to know that. So like, I wanted like the real deal. I wanted like really great chefs so that there was nothing compromised. And so when I saw their lineup, I was like, oh, this is dope. Like they had some really good chefs. Like I was shocked. I was talking to my mom laughing, like, I don't do vegan anything. And like, they had vegan chefs on there that were like, I was like, this is fantastic. So all around, it was just like kind of the creme de la creme. Like they had all the best of everything. So that was dope. It made it easy.
And it's such an educational moment,
Yes.
right? For people who understand the world and the industry and how it all comes together and how many different ways it affects different communities and different people.
Right.
What do you want the number one takeaway to be for viewers when they watch this?
Oh man. Two things, I think. The two main things that I think I kept focusing on was, on one level, the artistry of it. It's an art form. And just that it's extremely, cannabis along with food is an extremely useful tool. And it's become, it was so kind of scoffed at for so long, and people had no idea. It's still such a new industry. Mm-hmm. I learned so much even in being on the show. Like from the chefs, I learned stuff as far as like how to incorporate cannabis, all the different ways you can incorporate, the right way versus the wrong way. From the experts that we had behind the scenes, I learned so much. I mean, I was like taking notes. Like, so that for me, I hope that people are able to take away really just like valuable information for how to properly incorporate this into your lifestyle. The idea of microdosing is a totally different thing than, let's get messed up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is not that. This is like
eat these brownies.
Right. This is like, go to work, be a mom, right. do your job, be responsible, and still be able to maintain these types of things where it's not just leisure, but actual, like there are really medicinal benefits to it that we were stripped of, because we used to use it a long time ago. So I think like, that's what I hope people are getting from it, on top of the fact that like these chefs were bomb and they really knew what they were doing.
And we also love like to know now this backstory of the chefs, but they're all varying ages. Like the first episode with the lady with the white hair, like I was like, oh, I'm gonna still fly until I'm older.
Well, the funny thing was, she the whole time was just like, I was doing this before it was cute. Like she was really like, she was like dosing, like she was on her own thing. It was funny. She comes from a totally different era. I mean, think about it. She started like when I was born, like really, you know what I'm saying? That she was dead ass. Like I started this in the 70s. Like word, like that's like a whole other thing, up against kids who are like in their 20s. You know what I'm saying? So like it was full spectrum. But I think that is kind of a testament to like food is the language of, it's a complete international language. And then cannabis, because it's been such a secret, you realize that like auntie over there was getting, you know what I mean? Or that this, like, you had no idea. Do you know what I mean? Like, and all of a sudden it's a real unifier too. Like you start to see people in a whole different way.
Yeah. Is cooking self-care for you? It's your, it's a second career or fourth. You are a multi-hyphenate, like dynamic. I mean, like receipts and receipts. But like, is it also self-care for you? Because I think right now we're all just like grasping for ways to care at home, and like people keep saying food, y'all, meal.
Right. No, 100%. I think like I'm big on like abundance and decadence, and I love my life to be, I feel like I don't waste any moments, and food is such a huge part of that, and like, I think there are so many misconceptions about what's healthy. And especially I think in the Black community, there's a lot of like, we're always taking guidelines and pointers from other people as opposed to looking back at where this whole thing started and what genuinely is best for us as a people. And so for me, I feel like I'm always researching and I'm always looking stuff up and I'm experimenting, and food really is about like feeling it's well-being, it's how you show love, and it's how I love to eat. So like,
me too.
I love to eat, you know what I mean? So I'm always like, ooh, like that. I plan my days around like snacks and food, and like, so making sure that they are optimal and that they're giving back, what I need them to give. Like that's so important. So yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious, do you follow recipes, or do you kind of like just wake up and like, I'm going to take some collards some pork back. You know what I mean? How do you cook? How do you? Is there,
it depends on what. It depends. It varies. You know, there are things that like. Well, first of all, I'm not a baker, but I do bake a lot. So I find myself, I do more recipes when I'm baking because it's not my real thing. You know, it's not where I'm gifted at. Like I can bake, but I would never tell anyone I'm a baker or a pastry chef. I definitely use more, you know, recipes from that aspect. As far as like when I'm cooking is like, it's a lot like music in the sense that like when you understand certain fundamentals, like it's like you have to learn the basics first, and then you can kind of play and add upon all of that. But you have to have a foundation. So generally, like I cook from my understanding of the ingredients, and so like even if I'm trying something new, it's because I understand for the most part what it's going to do and how it's going to react, whether it's with steam or fire or butter or you know whatever that is. So I definitely I take guidelines sometimes. Like if I'm cooking something from like Malaysia that I've never cooked before, like I understand why these ingredients work, but I try to deconstruct it and go back to the beginning, sort of, you know. So I really understand.
Wait, I have to put Charlie on the spot for 1 second.
Uh-oh.
But because we're talking to a chef right now,
Okay.
an expert. So Charlie doesn't cook
At all? Look at her face, just doing it.
But please tell Charlie, like, what are the 3 things well, let's say 5, 3 to 5 things she must have in her kitchen to make something.
Okay.
For beginners.
Well, let's see. I would say as far as ingredients go, so like every culture has kind of their like sofrito, their starter, right? Yeah. I think me personally, like for African, Caribbean, like the flavors that I personally like, which you have to decide what you like. It might be if it's French or if it's whatever that is, there's always a starter, right? And things you should always have. So onion is a real universal one. So you should always have a yellow onion, right? Garlic. And then for me personally, I would opt for like peppers over carrots generally. French would be like, if you like more European or French kind of cuisine, then you would go with like celery, carrots, onions, right? If you're more like me and you go for more like the spicier kind of like colorful, heartier things, then you would go with like onions, garlic, peppers. And that's, you can pretty much, honestly, there are so many different things you can do, like stewed chicken. You can do all kinds of curries. You can do, I mean, really anything. Like it's sort of for all the soups and braises and things like that. It's such a great, like if you don't have those things, you're kind of asked out. So that would be like, as far as ingredients, my main things to say. And then really, you need a food processor. I tell all of my, like, I have like all these younger girls that work for me. I'm always like, girl, do you have a food processor? Because we can't even talk to you. Like, get a food processor.
Why? Like, teach. I'm like, look, I'm like,
to cut up this stuff. Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's like a chef's like, can I do stuff by hand? Yeah, I can. But like, first of all, why if I'm doing it every day? Secondly, like, it's an equalizer. So if you don't cook the way I cook, it makes it so that like, if I'm talking to you over the phone and I'm like, hey girl, you want to make, you know, jerk chicken, whatever, you want to make whatever you want to make, I know that yours came out like mine came out.
Because of the food processor.
Yes, it's like, hey, this is a great, so that way I know how long to tell you cook times. If your pieces are much larger or not even like mine are, then your cook time's going to be different, right? And the amount of liquid that you need is going to be different. So it's kind of like, I just feel like it's a really good, like, it kind of simplifies everything and it equalizes everything. So if you're going by a recipe, you kind of know what you're getting. Do you know what I mean? It leaves less mess.
I have just changed my husband's life in isolation because I burnt eggs yesterday.
There's so, like, even like last night, you know what, I was kind of, you know, especially because we live so far out here, like Postmates is not an option. So like we cook every single day. And so like you get tired, you're like, I'm tired of eating. I'm just tired. Like, I'm tired of the same stuff. Like you just get over it, right? Even as a chef, I'm like, I don't have no ideas. Like, I don't know. Can someone else cook for me? Like, you know, you just sort of feel like, I was okay, well, what do we do? So I was like, okay, well, let's do meatballs. And, you know, with the easiest thing to do, because my kids were involved, just to be like, okay, great. So throw it in the food processor. It's the easiest thing in the world. You know, and it's like, oh, okay, well, let's make Swedish meatballs. Like, why don't we do that? Like, you know what? let's get a little fancy. Swedish meatballs. And so it's, I'm like, what do you have? And it's kind of the things you're going to have always around. You should always have milk and heavy cream. You should always have garlic. You should always have some kind of onions. You should always have bread, that kind of thing. Like, so threw it all in the food processor, and within 40 minutes we had Swedish meatballs and lingonberries and mashed potatoes. And you know what I mean? So like that kind of thing is like, they're must. You should definitely have a food processor.
Thank you. I will order one after this call. Also, I love that you talk about incorporating your sons. And one of the things I want to ask you is, one of the things I love about you as a woman is that it's clear when you make up your mind about something, you're doing it.
That's it.
We've watched your career. We've watched you, and you're just such a free spirit, but also so fiercely focused on what you want. What are you teaching your sons from your lifestyle? What do you want them to take away?
Well, it's funny because like being totally transparent, you look at your kids and you're like, you are spoiled. Like, you're like, I love you and I recognize this is my fault, but like, you are spoiled. And what do I do about that? Like, damn. So like you look at, and like, I worked so hard at like keeping them as grounded and out of all of this as I possibly can. But there's nothing you can do to get around it. Like, they did not grow up the way that I grew up. Like, they just didn't, you know what I mean? Like, my mom was way stricter. I grew up in Harlem. Everything about it is like, it's just like, this is the dumb stuff you don't think about when you're having this perfect little baby. You're like, they're going to have an edge and they're going to have all the things that I had because they're going to grow up. Like, no, that is not realistic. Like, they will be lovely and you will love them, but they will not be like you were. So like, I don't know. I think it's just, I'm not a coddler, first of all. And I think it's also easy because I have boys, but I'm very much like, shake it off. And I think it's because they are so much more privileged than I grew up. I want them to understand, they see me work. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not the mom that's like cleaning their room for them. Like, that's not, the housekeeper's not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm like, if you want to live in a pigsty, sir, that is okay. Make sure the door closes. And like, I'm not, so there's silly little things that just become part of our life. Especially now being on the farm, like they have chores, it's like, you need to be a part of this. And at first they were like, wait, what? This is our land. And if it goes to hell, then it's like, I got nothing to give you. Like, this is it. So work it out, homie. Like, get it together. So they're very like, uh-oh, mama's coming. But they're part of the whole like ecosystem that we're building here. And I think that's really important. They're not on iPhones and iPads. And like, I try to keep it as like, I try to keep them as grounded as possible. Nothing for them. I'm always like, I work really hard. And so I'm able to do these certain things for you, but it's not like you earned it. It's like, it's because I love you and I'm a sucker. But it's not because like you just deserve it. Like, I could love you and never do these things. Like,
I love
it. And she loved us. So like, you do the best you can and you try to keep them, they understand that all this is a job for me too. And so like, they're not really impressed. Like, they're like excited for me as children are, but they're not like, this is not the end all be all. They're like, that lady works. Like, she works. Yeah. And I bring them on tour so they see it. Like, my kids tour with me. So even when this whole like COVID thing happened, like I was in Austria at the time and we had to fly back and they're like, you're leaving? I was like, yeah, we got to go.
We got to get home. We got to get home.
We got to go. Yeah. It's getting very real.
I love that they get to see your life.
Yeah, it's funny. When I first had Knight, my oldest, I got a lot of questions about like what I was going to censor for them. And it's definitely it's an everyday question you ask yourself. But I never wanted to have to censor myself from them. And so even like with the show, I was like, okay, we're talking about weed and like, but I thought about it and I was just like, I'm not ashamed of it. And like, I'm really proud of myself. And I think that it was important. And I want them to understand that. And so I'm sitting there watching the show with my kids and my son's like, what's high? And I'm like, well, and we have to break that stigma also, I think, just thinking about cannabis the same way, like, I was studying to get my sommelier certification at one point and like, no one's looking at me like, oh, she's an alcoholic. Like, no, I'm not. It's about the art of it. Right. And so it's the same thing with cannabis. It's like, I think if we approach it a certain way, we can take all the stigmas away so that it does become an art and it becomes respected as opposed to like, just someone over there like a stoner. Like that, I think that's really important.
I'll tell you, watching the show, that's what it did for me, because I don't smoke. And
I don't smoke I'm like at all. So that, yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it's really personal because, you know, my father was a drug addict, but that's a whole other story. So I have a lot of issues with it, but watching the show, it made it elegant. Right. And I was like, maybe I will try. Maybe I will. I would love to be invited to a cannabis infused dinner. Because I feel like that's for me personally, that'd be a way to introduce, to actually see the natural benefits of it, as opposed to what I've constantly, my previous memories.
Right. No, absolutely. I did for my birthday, I had one of a friend of mine was one of the chefs, the experts from the show, behind the scenes, for my 40th, did a cannabis infused dinner. And so I had a lot of friends that were there that they were like, oh my God, Kay's crazy. Why is she doing this to us? And like, at the end of it, I was like, okay, guys, like, you know, what, and everybody, it's funny because across the board and friends from all over the place, everyone was like, it was the greatest experience. Like, and it's not scary anymore. And, you know, you do want someone that actually knows like what they're doing and understands proper dosing. And the idea is not to scare the crap out of people and, you know, have someone have a terrible, you know, experience. But there is so much like that you can do, you know, like I used to have really bad migraines and I stopped, you know, there was a whole bunch of like extra stuff that was happening as far as like my vocal cords, and I ended up having polyps and I had to have surgery and all this crap because of like Advil and just all the ibuprofen that was not good for my body. And so when I started, you know, they started recommending, a friend of mine actually started recommending taking all kinds of like tinctures and stuff like that, like the oils and things. And I was like, ugh. And I'm usually, at the time I was the kind of person that was just like the natural, like, give me the drugs, like, give me, what is the doctor? You know what I mean? I was like, I ain't nobody got time for all this herbalization. I'm like, I want like the real deal. And like, it was out of necessity that because it just, you know, the Advil, it was like, I had to keep taking more.
It wasn't working. Yeah.
It's so bad. It's not weird. It wasn't working. I have not taken an Advil in like 3 years. Or an ibuprofen or an Aleve or anything else like that. And that for me was game changing too, just to be like, that's actually crazy. And then my mom is like a lot of, there's so many uses for it. You don't have to be high to use it. Like real talk, there's so many different parts of the plant that are just becoming part of like, you know, talk and conversation now. So explore. I'm like, you'll learn a lot.
All right. That's my first, I think I'm going to add that to the top of my bucket list when we get back to normal.
It can be really fun because there is a fun aspect to it, but like there's THCA and CBN and all these different components to the plant that have no psycho effects at all, you know, so you will not feel high. But you'll definitely feel like, oh, anti-inflammation and, you know, no anxiety and no stress. And I'm not gritting my teeth and my period is easier. Like all these things, you know what I mean?
So many benefits.
So many.
First, I'm going to learn to cook. And then I'm going to learn.
You can text me. I tell all my friends to text me because I'm like, I'll help you. Don't struggle.
I'm so good at text you.
You really can.
I need you to know.
Andy's going to do it.
And I get questions that I shouldn't even be getting. I'm like, you know, I don't do that.
I am on the struggle bus. I taught myself the pan sear last week, and I was super excited about it.
That's helpful, though. That's good. So all those fundamentals that you learn are going to be part of the bigger things you want to do. So
I'm ready.
Any trouble, hit me up.
I am. No, I'm serious. I'm going to find you right on the DM. Text me whatever you want.
Right.
Some of us never learned. Like, I know, you know, like I didn't have, like my mom passed when I was little, then my grandma passed. And like thinking back, just being raised by my dad, I was like, oh my God, it was chicken fingers, broccoli, milk, and I never learned. So I do.
How do you eat now, though?
What do we eat?
How do you eat now? Like, what's your?
I will literally throw a piece of chicken breast in a Pyrex dish, sprinkle salt and pepper on it, and heat up some steamable vegetables. Like, that is my life.
But are you happy? Like, do you like it? Because if you like that, then you're winning. But do you wish that there were more?
Yes, sir. I crave flavor. I mean, my husband can cook, so he'd kill me if I didn't acknowledge that.
Okay.
He can cook, but I'm struggling.
Someone in the family has to.
Someone totally get that. But, you know, speaking of quarantine and all of this, Corey and I have been asking our guests, and right, Corey, I think it's kind of dear to our heart. What are you learning about yourself with all this time with yourself?
Oh, that I love it. I'm good. Okay.
You're like, I'm never going back outside.
Yeah.
What is out there? It's what my friends were like, girl, you were built for this. I'm like, what? Like, I love it.
You're good.
Well, because like I said, I was on tour even when this whole thing happened. So I think because I'm an extremist anyway, and my life is so extreme that like, you'll be on the road for 3 months or 4 months, and you're like, I have met more people and snuggled and hugged and don't nobody touch me, don't talk to me, like I need to go home, like so I was like, I'm great. Like, and I was in my apartment, I might feel different, but being here and being, having space, we don't feel cooped up. Like I can be outside whenever I need to be outside, and we go on walks. And like, my sons just came in with eggs. Like they literally just brought eggs in. I'm like,
I love it. Corey, we need a farm.
We need a farm. Like I said too, like when this is all over, I would love, you guys should come over. We'll cook, we'll eat off the land. We have cows, we've got goats, we've got chickens. Everything it's beyond, we make a joke here. We're like, it's beyond organic, because organic is some crazy certification that comes from USDA.
Oh, yes, yeah.
I've been on this, but the air, water, and like me and, the kids fussing with it every now and again. Like it's as fresh and as like pure as you could really get. So
Corey,
space here. So
yes, girl goes to the farm.
Yes, girl goes to the farm. I'm here for it.
We're coming.
Yes.
Do some dinners in the olive grove. I mean, I've been saying it because it's so pretty. And yeah, come chill, eat, hang out.
What's happening?
Yeah, it's good.
I love it. I'm down. I'm down.
Come out, please. You're more than welcome.
Kelis, you have such a great vibe. Thank you for being you. I love it.
Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. It's fun.
We appreciate you so much, and good luck with whatever amazing thing you're doing next.
Thank you.
You keep it interesting. We love it.
I'm busy. Stay busy.
No, but truly, we love it, and thank you so much for stopping by the show.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.